How do you build a high-performing culture? This is Culture Architects. Candid conversations with extraordinary leaders sharing their biggest successes, failures, and lessons learned on their culture journeys. Here's David J. Friedman.
So today on Culture Architects, we're talking with Brian Roers. Brian's the co-founder and owner of Roers Companies. Roers Companies is a multifamily and a commercial real estate development firm based in Plymouth, Minnesota, in the Minneapolis area. It was founded in 2012 by Brian and his brother, Kent. Last year, the company was recognized by Inc. 5000 as the 344th fastest growing private company in America. And they've got over 400 people now. So this, and across 14 different states. So this is a big company that's really grown and grown in a pretty significant way. And a big factor in that growth, not surprisingly, especially on this podcast, has been their culture. And so they've won a lot of multiple Best Places to Work awards and all kinds of awards for being a great company to work for. And I know Brian's got a really interesting story of how that happened and how he developed that and the lessons he learned. So Brian, we're really excited to hear your journey. Welcome to Culture Architects.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to tell the story and, just show the people and what's gone on here. So we're really appreciative of you having us, and we're looking forward to a good conversation.
Excellent. So let's just, for our audience sake, Brian, just give us a little bit of history. Go back to, as I understand it, you were a CPA first, right?
Yeah.
And you were in that business, and somehow you said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to switch gears. How did that happen? Tell me that story.
Well, you almost got to go a half a step farther back. Okay. Is to really go. So my brother and I grew up out in Southwest Minnesota, so rural area.
Okay.
Just really with, people, hard work, agriculture area, everything from working on farms to small businesses. That's just how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously everybody knows, the businesses are as good as the people that make it up. So from age zero, pretty much our family is in the ag world and in business. And so we've always known that. Fast forward to, I went up to college, found out I could get a accounting degree and a management degree. Mm-hmm. And so really came right out of the chutes with, I was first a manager degree, and then I added on the accounting degree. I never dreamed of going into accounting, to be honest.
Okay.
But as I came out of St. John's, where I was at, small private school in central Minnesota, they were looking for accountants. So that's when I went to KPMG, a Big Four accounting firm, and really, I landed there and really enjoyed it. I mean, just the people, the numbers, everything was great. So that was my first start into accounting, was at a Big Four CPA firm.
Yeah, but didn't you also create your own accounting firm after that too?
Yeah. So, learning, I went from there to another small firm, learned, culture along the way. Mm-hmm. And then, started my own. So another lady and I partnered up, and we started a firm, 50-50 joint venture. Mm-hmm. We did mostly healthcare clients in those days. Mm-hmm. I think we had 13 people was our max.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we did that for 9 years. I owned that CPA firm.
Wow. And so what led you to say, all right, I've had this career in accounting so far, I'm going to do something different, and why real estate?
Yeah, there's two different variations of it. One, I was traveling a lot with the CPA firm. My business partner was, different phase of life. She was 60. I was 30 at the time. And then the same time, my brother and I had always dreamed of working together. He's probably better, I would say, at the sales and that side of the business, still very good with numbers. I love numbers, the finance, and then working with the people. And so that was really it was kind of a collision of wanting to do a bit of a career change. The opportunity was there. We saw a big need for housing, and we had been doing real estate on the side.
Okay.
So I would literally nights and weekends, we were doing single family, lease to owns, flips, but a lot of housing on the side, as we always said. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of flipped our day job and our night job.
Okay. I decided it was time to make this a business. So was it just the two of you, and then you started to hire some people, or what was the beginning of that company?
Yeah. It was just the two of us at the time. We had some contractors working with us. And what we saw was there was a need. People needed housing, number one. And then people were always asking for investments. And so my brother is in the financial planning side. He's a certified financial planner. And people kept asking him about, how do I invest in real estate? How do I get into real estate? And this was really our avenue to get in, was by using personal investments to create the housing that we knew were in demand. And that was really the collective. It was Kent and I, just the two of us, I always joke, the visual was we would drive everywhere we went. I was sitting in the passenger seat on my computer, and Grant was in the driver's seat talking on the phone to a bank or to an investor or to somebody trying to get the next deal done.
So, and what year was that you started the company?
2012.
So just to be clear, so from 2012, it's you and your brother driving around in your car, typing notes and on the phone, and 12, 13 years later, you've got 400 people.
That's correct.
That's a lot of growth. And so where in that path did it first occur to you? And this might have been even in your previous career in the accounting world, but somewhere along the line, you had this recognition that, you know what, the culture really has an impact here. Where did that come from, or how did that strike you?
I think the biggest thing, obviously you're right. You learn from the past, and being at the CPA firms that I was at, and even doing the real estate, as we said on the side, you're always involving people. You can only leverage yourself so far when it's two of you. And so we started early on hiring, we always said we hired the best people and tried to find the best partners in it. And it's really, we started doing that. I would say then along the way, what we did to really help harness us all was we put in what we call EOS, but the Entrepreneur Operating System based on the traction booklet. And what that really does is it really gives your teams the tools they need. It gives them the vision, the values, the strategy. It gives them kind of everything they need to succeed. And it almost is, you wake up 12 years later, here you got a company with 400 people in it. And so I can't look you in the eye and say, we started out 12 years ago and we said, or 13 years ago, we said, we're going to be at this many people. But it's happened, and it just happens through growth. It happens by giving people the tools they need, being very defined in where you're going and what you want to do. And really, obviously just harnessing those teams to provide the growth, because that is truly where it comes from.
So I saw an article, I don't remember what newspaper magazine it was about your company. And as I recall in the article, it talked about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the gist of what I picked up in the article was there was a period in which you were growing fast and maybe didn't pay attention to your culture the way you wanted, and things didn't go as well. And then you said, hey, wait a second, we got to relook at this thing. Yep. Is that an accurate story, or tell me what was that story?
Yeah, it's absolutely accurate. Part of it is when you're a growth company, this is what we had to learn along the way. Love it if I can pass it on. But, growth comes in different stages and it needs different people. And so some of the people are there for the long haul. Some of the people are there and they want to do that segment of the business. And so what happened is we started it in 2012. We ran it up. We put the EOS system in place, which what it did for us is we set goals. We said, we want to be at this many units by this time frame. We want to have this much real estate and this many people on the team. And so we kind of laid out those goals, and they were truly just wild dreams. And as we got trucking along on those goals, what I say is 2017 happened. And as we really defined who we were, where we were going, we looked around and the team wasn't quite geared right. So we really had to go to work that day and really make sure we had the right team with us. And so there's a group that was here back in 2017. They really wanted to grow, wanted to keep going. There's a group that's not. And it was a really hard time for us because you have to really define who you are, who you want on the team, and who's really aligned with what vision you're pushing forward and how you're going. And so I think we started 2017 with 22 people in the corporate office. We ended with, I think, the same number of people, but 11 of them were the same people. Wow. So you really got to define who you want, who's the right team members. But that's what really set off that quest to never miss that again in those growth spurts. And we truly did. I know coming through 2020, coming through those COVID years in 22, we had a really big year. We kept saying we're not going to lose track of what we did and what we missed in 2017. We're going to hire ahead if we can. We're going to hire the right people, even though we're screaming for talent and need it. We're probably going to have to pay more for that, to get those people on board. And that's what happened through those time periods.
Yeah. I've certainly seen that in my own career, that companies that stay focused on hiring the best people and developing those people ultimately are going to be the best off. And to your point, some of the people that got you to a certain point aren't the people that are going to get you to the next point. Some of them will grow with you, and some it's not the right fit. And saying, and this is what I hear in what you're saying about the 11 who didn't make it, the 11 of the 22 who didn't make it to the next level. Certainly one of the things I've seen and experienced and taught many times is saying that somebody isn't the right fit for what you're going for doesn't make them a bad person. Mm-hmm. It's just not the right fit. That's, you've got a vision for what it is that you're creating, and you've laid that vision out. Some people will be a wonderful fit for that vision, and some people won't be a fit for that vision, and they should work somewhere else.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, all of them, I think, are very successful in doing what they're doing. And part of that is just you're defining where you're going and what you're doing. And that really, I mean, I don't even think we didn't go select the people. Most of them self-selected out and just said, hey, you know what? I like what you're doing. It's just not for me. It's not my future. And we were like, that's fine. I mean, we always celebrate that when that happens. We want people to be successful wherever they're at. And there truly are different organizations that are geared differently. And that's fine. That's part of where we just try to be very defined. We want everyone to be on par with where they're at. We don't want any surprises. And so that's what we worked really hard on, kind of since that time frame of being crystal clear of who we are, where we're going, what we want to do. We did I think it's called OCAI, but we did an assessment here a couple of years ago of what is our culture and how is it geared. And it was really neat. It was a tool, and it used different companies out there, right? Like, I'm going to describe them just for visual sake, but very successful companies like Walmart, like Amazon, right? Like Apple, all very different companies with very different cultures.
Very different.
What this tool did is you put each of those companies in a quadrant, and then you kind of scored what your points were inside of that quadrant and what you wanted to be more like. And so we were able to truly visualize what our culture was. And then we went one step farther and said, hey, what do we want it to be? Because, it's never perfect, right? Is it perfect? No. Interestingly, we tweaked it a little bit, but we didn't change it materially. We just tweaked a couple of points on it and said, this is what we want for our culture. And we're going to put all of our tools inside of that.
Yeah, I was doing a talk yesterday as we're doing this recording. I was doing a talk in Boston yesterday, and somebody in the audience asked me about this woman was she was the chief human resources person for a company, so she wasn't the CEO.
Yeah,
and she was asking me about who should define the culture, because in her company she was concerned the CEO and the leaders were defining what that culture was, and some people weren't a good fit for that. And I was trying to help her to say, yes, that's how it's supposed to be, that it's your job as a leader to say, this is the culture we're building. And some people it might not be the right fit for. But it's interesting how often I talk about that one of the biggest mistakes companies make, in my view, at least in this kind of work, is being too collaborative. It's not that we don't care what everybody else thinks, but at the end of the day, it's you and your brother deciding what your vision of what the company is. And the more clear you are about that, the easier it is for people to decide whether they're the right fit for that or not.
Absolutely. And that's what we've tried to do. I don't have an example of it here, but we have a culture blueprint that we put together. We did our first version a couple of years ago, and then we just came out with our most updated version. And it literally walks through, here's our culture, here's our values, and here's what they look like, and here's what they don't look like. And literally, like, if you're an individual, and it breaks it apart even then into like individual contributors, managers, and then, higher level leaders. So just, this is what it looks like. This is how we act. This is how we operate. We just want to be crystal clear to put a tool out there, just really saying, this is from us, to your point, as owners and leaders of what we see the culture and what the values are, and let everybody get on board. And even to the extent, the other thing I know from your mention of it, the way you do that too is, so we have a culture index. So we pay, I would say, a significant amount of money, but to test people and like, just look at what their makeup is. And then we share with them what ours is. And I'll say, hey, here's my culture index as a leader. Here's how I'm going to lead this organization. And do you want to be a part of that? And here's what your culture index looks like. Here's how it fits. There's no right or wrong answer, but here's how it fits. Here's how you're going to be stressed. If you're somebody who's super system oriented and you love, to keep the systems going, we need that on this. When you're a high growth company, we need that, but it's not going to be easy for you because this is the way we're geared. So yeah, just really tools are what we've really liked putting out there, very tangible, visual, presentational things that our team can grasp and see and know that they're on the right train.
So how do you've sounds like you've done a fabulous job of defining with a tremendous amount of clarity what you want your culture to be and who you are and what you're about and where you're going. Beyond just printing that, how does that get taught in your organization on a day-to-day basis? I come to work for you and I'm just doing my job. How does that show up for me? Where am I learning that?
Great question. So going back to even, you talked about the myths of 2017. One of the things that came out of that, when I think it was probably roughly 2018, 19, but we had somebody sit back one day and say, hey, what's your legacy? Like, what do you want to leave? And at the time I was probably 40 years old, or to count my math backwards. So roughly.
You're not good with numbers anyway, so.
Yeah, right. I'm not looking for legacy. I mean, we're just in the middle innings of having a blast here. So one of the things we said is we love leadership. We love seeing, I'm like, if I could walk out of here someday and the leaders take everything on and it's being run by a leader-run organization, that'd be my day. Like, that's what I love. And so we kind of started filtering that into the culture more so that day. And so answering your direct question, so what we do is we have a lead program where we put, some of our higher level leaders into a 6 or 12-month program, and they meet monthly and they go through different concepts. We have this lead PMTQ for our middle level managers. We do coaching and coffee. So we have a coach that comes in once a month over lunch or over coffee or over a break time and does a quick session on, different concepts, different tools, whether it be stress management or how to lead people or, how to know thyself or different concepts there. We actually have a professional coach, basically on staff that right now, I think she's coaching 34 of our different leaders. And so we just put a big emphasis around training, as well as probably going back to that EOS system that really has a framework that really exemplifies all of the values of it, in that, as part of the EOS system, like even for me, I do a once a week check-in with each one of my direct reports. And then once a week, I have what we call an L10 or a level 10 meeting where we go through kind of the quarterly goals that we have, what are the issues we're dealing with. And so it just really is transparent. The team's really learning what we're doing, how it's going about. And a lot of that's pulled through kind of a leadership filter, where part of the tools.
So what I hear you saying, Brian, is that developing your people is really important. And certainly part of the legacy that you want to live, if you do have a legacy. It's this idea that I've developed my people into leaders. And it sounds like you're doing some amazing things. I'm curious, perhaps more specifically about, so you've got a set of core values that you've done through EOS, and you built your frame, what did you call it? Your blueprint?
Values blueprint, yep.
Your blueprint. If I'm the average employee, you hired me and I'm new and I've been here for a couple of months, beyond the fact that you're developing me as a leader because I've got opportunities to do some of these things, how do I learn those values specifically? How does that get taught to me on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it starts really early on in the process, and it should be in every interview. We always say we reward on them. So like every performer, we do an annual performance reviews. They're in there, but they're on the wall. But everybody has them on the wall, right?
Sure.
But we do really we walk by them, we talk about them, bench the values framework. It's just always been a really big part of what we are and what we do. And so we do hammer away at them, and we have issues, right? We bump into things, if a credit card comes into me and somebody needs to be reminded what ownership mindset means, right? Like we'll talk to them and we talk about that through the values. And, we see people dipping and we're like, hey, things got to get done. We got a lot going on out there. We need more from your department. We're going to really need you to be looking at that work ethic value, what that means. And so we do a lot of that with it. Trying to think of, but it is truly a big part of who we are and what we do. We try to be as transparent as we can about that, so everybody knows where we're at. Yeah. So we even, funny example, we do once a year, we do what we call our ROCO awards. And so we'll do different awards for different things, the property manager of the year, and and there's an award for each one of the values, and the overall team member of the year award as well. So nice. Again, every chance we get to celebrate him, we are trying our best to pound him from the top of the mountains.
Nice. So one of the things that I have talked about with many, many leaders is, and I'm sure you've seen this and you've seen it in your Vistage group, I'm sure, every company has points in their career in which, or in their development, in which they have a typically high-performing employee who is a lousy example of their culture or their values. And they grapple with, okay, how many times are we going to talk about this person in our management meeting or in our L10 meeting in your case before we eventually make the decision that they need to not be part of our company?
Yeah.
Tell me a story of when that happened for you. You don't have to give me the name, obviously.
Yeah. It's hardest when it's a leader too, when you got, and even a lot of times you'll have most of the values, but not all of them. And yeah, I mean, we had it not too long ago, one of the leaders in our area, and we worked with it. And, truly what I always chuckle about, even Brother Kent and I had talked about it and wanted to really get the team involved in the decision so they could kind of almost learn from it, because it's one of those things that it's really hard to look at that side when you see them as performing on most of the aspects, but how that's impacting the team and not getting out there and doing what they really need to do. And in this case, it was truly this ownership mindset of really understanding the business and where we needed to encourage our team, how to keep them accountable, how to push on them to do their job and how to impact the firm. And it eventually ends up impacting the firm immensely. And so you move it out, and then, then you get what took so long. And it's so we try to really be mindful of it when it comes up, and especially it should during performance review time. I mean, if you're not coaching and counseling always on values, it's really, that's really a miss. And so we try to really encourage that. But yeah, we all have that, right? Like I always love I always see the old timers, but the people like, oh, a bad hire is rude. We know that, but we all know it in the seat too. When you're in the middle of the storm and growth is happening like it is, it's really hard, but you have to do it. And so so we definitely do it. It's a hard one to stare down.
Yeah. And yet I always say it's certainly one of, if not the clearest message you'll ever send to the rest of the team who's watching this. Yeah. Because for one, your failure to address that person after plenty of coaching and development, but at some point you don't get to be on the team anymore. And your failure to address that person is basically telling the rest of the organization, this stuff doesn't really matter. Yeah. Especially if you bring in enough money or you sell enough business or have important relationships or whatever it is that has kept you from making that decision. And most of us take longer to make that decision than we probably should. Yeah.
And we've had, what mostly happens is the team will acknowledge it, like, okay, well, it's about time. We saw it all the way along. And you're like, yeah. And then usually you can back your way and, well, we were working on it. We were doing this because you can't talk about that at the time. Right. But normally we're able to recoup that pretty quickly with the team. And we say, look, this is what happened. We saw it. Just, we saw it all the way along. We were working on it. This is what we were doing. And we finally got this result. And normally they're like, we really appreciate it. Love that you were able to make that decision. And not an easy decision to make, right? Yeah. Like, they get it. And so we've always gotten more accolades from our team when we've done that than stress or putting other things aside.
Have you ever, not to dwell on getting rid of people, but have you ever had an occasion to get rid of perhaps an investor or a client or customer, whatever you call them, who wasn't aligned with the way you want to do business?
Yeah, probably our biggest one is, keep in mind, we're in the construction industry. And so we've had 2 times where we've had construction companies, one that was just super harsh on our team. And I'm like, look, you can call me up and you can give an FU to me, but you don't do that to my team. And so we quit doing business with them. We had another one that obviously construction company tried to run a change order in a very dishonest way. We will never work with them again. And that's, we made a real point of that. That's on that side. I'm trying to think. We think I make sure we're sure.
You ever have maybe an investor who you were doing business with and decided, no, we're not going to do business with you anymore?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What we do is we work with investments. That's a very, very personal thing. But most of our partners and investors, this is their, retirement funds they're working with. So they can get very emotional. They can get very siders. When we try to work on things, we had a mistake happen inside of our office. We fixed it very quickly. The communication was not proper or appropriate on the other side. We're like, look, that's fine. We don't need to do investments together. We really want to have the right team. We love it when investors cheer what we do. They see our team. They respect our team. That's what we want.
Yeah.
No, it does happen. I won't say often, but it's very common, I would say,
Right.
especially from the investor side.
Well, and your ultimately your willingness to forego the revenue, the relationship, whatever it is that they represent, tells the rest of your team how serious you are about this.
Yeah.
That we're not kidding around. We're willing to forego that to make sure we're only working with people that are the best fit for us.
Well, and that's what's really interesting. In our sense, our team really has to get around that because we really do work a lot with friends and family. And so a lot of our investors are people, and they see it. I mean, literally, it's a neighbor calling me up to talk to me about, how my kids are doing and me saying, hey, are you guys doing investments? They're like, yeah, we're doing investments. Of course we are. I'm like, well, why don't we do those together? And so that goes into the team too. And then the team sees that. And so they know that this is family, this is like family to us. So they treat, in turn, going back to your point, they also treat our investors like family. I mean, the hugest integrity standards. And when there's a call to be made, our team knows how close these investors are. So they treat them with that ownership mindset, with integrity. They treat them with how we treat the team. They're treating our investors that way. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah, that's powerful. Folks, that's the end of the first part of my conversation with Brian Roers, the co-founder and owner of Roers Companies. When we come back on the next episode of Culture Architects, Brian and I are going to get into the challenges of consistently teaching that culture when the company's growing so much, and as Roers Companies has, across 14 different states. Brian also shares two of the biggest mistakes he's made about culture. We have all that and more in the next episode, so make sure you stay tuned.
This has been Culture Architects with David J. Friedman. Join us next time for more insights and wisdom from great leaders in all walks of life. To book David for your next event or to learn more about his writing, speaking, or consulting, go to davidjfriedman.com. Culture Architects with David J. Friedman is a production of CultureWise.